two, one.
Yeah. I'm not worried about that. We're just going to dive right into it, friends and foes. It's a football show. It's draft recap time. It's the million and one video and podcast you've probably listened to figure out how your team did. We're going to try to dive into it best we can. Of course, we're fans of teams from the NFC East, but we'll try to keep an open perspective. Because I think we all know that some of our favorite drafts are probably by teams that weren't our teams. So we'll get into that, dive in right away. Chris Cortez, can you hear me loud and clear?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Loud and clear. We had some tech issues when we tried to boot this thing up, but we're back in. We're near the Wi-Fi. I think we're going to make it through. Michael Foose and your Philadelphia Eagles, how you feeling?
Feeling really good. Yeah, we'll talk about that more later.
So I say we'll dive right in. This is going to be mostly an overview of the draft, maybe the first round or so that we cover. But there's been a couple of crazy things that happened before. There's a little bit of news that hit the day of. The news hit that Aaron Rodgers makes his official request to leave the Green Bay Packers. And the rumor mill hits. Like tied to every team. Is he tied to San Francisco? He's going to Denver. Apparently, I heard the most recent thing to Denver had deals in the works. They were close. They were right on the verge. We'll talk about it later why they may or may not have even impacted how they drafted. So, guys, what do you make of it? Is Green Bay just unable to keep a quarterback past 16 seasons? Is just the limit?
It's so fascinating. I mean, it's odd that it's 16-16 with Bart Starr and Brett Favre, potentially 16 with Rodgers. But last year when they traded up to draft Jordan Love, it's just like, what is this organization doing? Like, you have one of the best quarterbacks of all time, still in his prime, locked and loaded, ready to go. Just came off a great season, and it's like, are you abandoning him? What are you doing? And then it just seems like thing after thing with the front office, with players being released that Rodgers liked, and eventually it just came to a head on draft day.
And they also kind of doubled down, if you think about it, taking Eric Stokes when there were some pretty good receivers still on the board, almost exactly doing what they did last year. I was kind of pulling for them to just draft another quarterback just to see what would happen. Like, just take as many quarterbacks as you can and just see what happens. This is crazy from a guy who just clearly does not want to be there. And so I'm really interested. I think it's that June 1st deadline where the cap hit goes down of, okay, are we going to see him play in Green Bay ever again?
Man, everything I'm hearing, this is as of, what's today's date? May 5th at 8:40 p.m. We could hear something tomorrow. We might not hear something, like you said, till after June 1st. That's usually when some of those designations, if he is traded, maybe less of his salary is guaranteed, less is on Green Bay's pocketbooks for that, wherever he goes. But even like local Green Bay writers are saying, well, there's a 5% chance that he might still play with Green Bay. So people that cover the team, how do you let this happen? I mean, it's got to be just the Green Bay ownership thing. There's not a real owner. There's not a real, it is a community trust, so to speak.
Yeah, I don't know if they thought Aaron Rodgers was past his time. You had a new regime kind of come in last season. And so sometimes guys want to put their own faces on that regime and be able to draft their guys and develop them. But once again, this guy's a first ballot Hall of Famer. And you should be able to just pick up and go with him. I feel really bad for any Packers fans. Actually, there's a guy in my fantasy football league that I'm a commissioner of. It's a dynasty league. And this guy's top two quarterbacks, because it's a 2 QB league, are Deshaun Watson and Aaron Rodgers. And I feel so bad for him right now. But
I
it's
mean, wherever Aaron
See,
plays, if he plays this season, he's gonna cook. Like the most I hear Raiders or might be a landing spot for him. I think he just wants out, but also you got Gruden over there. He'll overpay. Yeah.
I mean, I guess my thing is I could understand this if, let's say, he was where Favre was. Okay, so Favre, toward the end, you could kind of tell, okay, he's moving out of his prime. He's older. He's this. Aaron Rodgers he was just the MVP of the league. They've gone to 2 straight NFC championship games. How do you not feel like your window is now and that it could be closing in the next couple of years? And you might be like a player or two away from getting over the hump. You know, I think that's the thing that blows my mind. I can understand if it was just him, they had a terrible team around him, and they just said, you know what, we need to just, burn it all down, rebuild, start over. But it seems like they're kind of willing to do that anyways.
Yeah. Who's to say? I mean, letting go any continuity. I think when you have a talent like that, I could see the temptation to be of, you know what, we will overcorrect. We're just going to go defense because we can put anything out there and Aaron will make it work because he's just got that talent. So then guess what? You don't protect him long enough. He has to run around more. He gets hurt. He's got some injuries. Next thing you know, you've wasted a couple of years of his prime. But it'll be interesting to play out either way. And it, again, had some possible implications at the top end of the draft. Kyle Shanahan sees light, comes back from nihilism. We're happy for his heart and his soul there. The interview where he apparently, when he was doing the whole tongue-in-cheek, we might not even be here Sunday. Apparently he had like an interview where that he was like friends with or close with, like a beat writer for San Fran. And he was apparently like trolling and messing with him. And then he's like, I called Jimmy. We're good. I called Jimmy. He's a great guy when he's healthy. Great guy. Got us to a Super Bowl. But the other quarterback who's got to be feeling the complete opposite of Aaron Rodgers has got to be Pat Mahomes right now. Like, we're also right there on the doorstep, and the antithesis of what Green Bay was doing. You know what? We're right there. We're going to make sure that we've got everything we need. Trading for Orlando Brown. Got Joe Thuney to come out of retirement, and then drafted Senator Creed Humphrey from Oklahoma. So, Pat Mahomes all smiles on the internet.
Yeah, Pat Mahomes is a very happy man. He is very cushy now. Kansas City, he has the huge contract, amazing talent around him. Sky's the limit. I expect the Super Bowl to probably be just a repeat of last season. Maybe a different result.
I think
though.
I really think any quarterback can feel good about not having to run for their life. I think it's kind of a baseline level of what your quarterback wants. I'd prefer not to get killed or hit nonstop in a game. And now Pat Mahomes has that with all those weapons to throw to. So, Foose, I agree. They are definitely a favorite to make it back to the Super Bowl.
Yep. Well, it's been almost 9 minutes, and we haven't even gotten to the draft. So, gentlemen, let's move right along. First round of the 2021 NFL Draft. Pretty much went how we thought. First 2 picks. T. Lawrence, number 2. The great Mormon hope is going to New York City. It's official. We're going to see those billboards you talked about, the Jersey Turnpike, coming up soon. Are they already there?
They might already be there. I've not gone up the Turnpike recently. I am confident they're probably already there.
I'll be up in that area next week for a wedding, so I'll see what I can see when I drive through. I might have to go what's the word I'm looking for? I can't speak. I'm intentionally going to just go around Philly. I'm just not even going to drive through Philly. I'm just going to skirt it as much as possible.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, it's fair. So, Trevor Lawrence comes off the board, franchise quarterback. No questions there. Zach Wilson off the board. And then look who was right about our boy Trey Lance. Mac Jones is not a top 5 pick. I knew it. Except I'm going to be honest, because I was honest last time. I thought I might be wrong on that, but I just refused. I heard too many things. Otherwise, you don't trade that much to get up to number 3 to take a solid, probably franchise quarterback, but I don't think he's going to. I think he's at a spot where he landed down with New England. We'll get down to that later on. But otherwise, pretty much Kyle Pitts to Atlanta as well. Guys, feel free to jump in any point in time, comment on any of these.
Yeah. So here was my thoughts on the Lance pick. I was really afraid that they gave up all that draft capital to draft Mac Jones. So in some ways for them, I was relieved. Here's where I think this is super interesting. So Lance did not play this past year. You have Jimmy Garoppolo in place, and I think a lot of people agree that Lance is probably a project. He's probably not ready to play right away. I think my concern is that you're talking probably 2 years of not really playing football regularly. Obviously being a backup, going through practices, all those things, but 2 years of not really playing regularly. I'm just really interested to see how that turns out. It's just a really unusual path. And I mean, we've talked about this at length. Justin Fields, to me, is a guy you could have taken at 3 and could have played right away. I'm interested to see if they go with Jimmy G as starter from day one, if they give Lance an opportunity to compete for the job. But if he ends up sitting for this year and then they move on from Jimmy G afterward, that's 2 whole years of not really playing regularly.
I also, talking about the 49ers pick, I wonder if they regretted that trade up, because you obviously didn't have all these rumors and things going around about Aaron Rodgers. Would they have been able to make a Rodgers trade on draft night if they had all that capital that they didn't just throw at the 3rd pick? We'll never know. But it's because Rodgers apparently loves, San Francisco. He went to Cal. If you're a quarterback in the NFL, like, the 49ers is a perfect landing spot for you right now. And so I just wonder if they regret that. Of course, now you just have to move forward. You have Trey Lance, great talent. Jimmy G is obviously a placeholder now. And it's not if, but when Trey Lance gets his time. Mac Jones, he was ready right now. I think he's one of those guys that you can draft and start. Whether the Patriots do that or not, I have no idea what Bill Belichick is going to do. He may just play the hot hand at quarterback. Who knows? But yeah, I did not have Lance at number 3. So shame on me.
And we'll get into the who is most right segment here in a moment, but I just want to get down and scroll through it, just get us a review and see how these teams are probably going to, how much of an impact these players we can expect the first couple of years. So Trey Lance, like you guys said, he's not going to start right away. What's more likely, for him to win the starting job by the end of the year, or him having to go in because Jimmy G's hurt?
Probably winning it.
It's an excellent point, John.
I would say winning it out. That's my take.
It's tough. I think we're more or less saying that he might be guaranteed to play this year, that either his ability will carry him, or if Jimmy G is as banged up this year as he was last year, they may need to play him out of necessity. Yeah. I don't know. I think I'm still... Foose, I thought the same thing on draft night of if they had all those picks still, could they have just, made the move for Rodgers? But you're right. We'll never know.
Some of the rumors are they still made calls anyway, involving 3 and some other items as well, to see if Green Bay would come up, switch out, take Rodgers, take salary, and then still make use of it. But Green Bay's just in a contract bid right now. They're at a standstill trying to see if Rodgers will blink. And, I mean, I don't think he's gonna.
Yeah, I mean, if I was any team except like the Bucks, um, the Chiefs, Seahawks, I'm trying to think of a few others with just stellar quarterbacks. I would be calling the Packers and seeing what kind of deal.
30 teams could upgrade a quarterback.
Oh, without a doubt.
Right.
Yeah.
I would have been fine if the Eagles traded away our future for Rodgers, you know?
Yeah. I mean, off season before we were sure if we were going to sign Dak again because there was a lot of anonymity going into it. We're like, would you try to sign and trade with Dak? Would you try to just trade for Rodgers and say, thank you, Dak, go elsewhere? Now, got the contract. I think this is going to be better in the long run because I think Dax is ascending. But, again, you get a chance with Aaron Rodgers. You kind of need to jump at it. Because then there's only these small windows that happen. With like a Peyton Manning going to the Broncos, you have this small window of let's take advantage of it. We've got a great team in place. Got to pull that trigger. Which was one of the other rumors, was Denver. So, no surprises really at number 4 for us. I think the only surprise that might have been was this pick might have gotten traded. But, man, that offense is going to be humming. Now that the hype is down, because the draft is over for Kyle Pitts, do you guys see him actually make an impact week 1? You think it's mid-season where you start to see this, or maybe not till the end of the season? Because sometimes wide receivers, tight ends take a minute to adjust.
If he doesn't start making an immediate impact, I would really start questioning the pick, because he's here at number 4, and like you drafted him to obviously start at 4. Whatever position that is, I'm not quite sure whether he's going to be taking right over Hayden Hurst, whether they're going to be going 12 personnel, whether he's going to be lining up in the slot outside. You can use him wherever. But if you draft Pitts just to develop, I don't think this was a very smart move, especially for a team like the Falcons that have a short window left with Matt Ryan, Julio Jones. You have to figure out how to get this guy the ball.
It reminds me of when, of course, being a Dallas fan, when the Mavericks basketball drafted Luka Doncic, there was this interview of, is he a forward? Does he play point guard? Is he a 2 guard? Because he's really hadn't gotten to his role yet. And Rick Carlisle, the head coach, was just like, his position's on the court. So I feel like the same thing applies to Kyle Pitts. His position's on the field. Get him on the field. And just wherever you need to line him up.
Yeah, I kind of feel like he's an immediate impact guy. I think the interesting variable here is what ends up happening with Julio Jones. He's another one of those guys that, past that June 1st deadline, the cap hit goes down. Could they trade and just try to get a bunch of draft capital back? I'm of the opinion of you have Jones, you now have Pitts, you have Ridley, and to Foos's point, Matt Ryan's window is for a couple more years. Just air it out. Just air it out. Go nuts with the guys you have, and just see what comes of it. But I really think he's an immediate impact kind of guy.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think if the Packers really wanted to make Aaron Rodgers healthy, if I was them, I would just do whatever I could to get Julio Jones off the Falcons, or just a trade like that. But it seems like the Falcons are just going to have an embarrassment of riches. The NFC South will be fun football to watch, I think, this upcoming year. You got all kinds of different storylines in that division, which should make it a lot of fun. Then looking at picks 5 and 6, you got those 2 receivers back to back. I mean, Chase at 5 is not a big surprise. But Jalen Waddle at 6, I mean, that seems like a bit of a reach to me. What do you guys think?
I did not anticipate him going that high. I really thought Sewell was going to go to one of these 2 teams. teams with young quarterbacks who've had significant injuries, that left tackle position is really important. I really thought they would draft some protection. I really thought Waddle would go probably somewhere in the 10 to 15 range, not this high.
See, I'm fine with it either way. I see what Miami's trying to do. I think what they're trying to do, bring it back to Dallas. When Dallas tried to run out Terrence Williams, who is the receiver from Jacksonville we picked up, who got injured. Chris, help me out here.
Was it
You're
Cole?
muted.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. I'm just trying to remember the name. The receiver from Jacksonville that got injured.
Well,
Keenan Cole?
No, it was their number 2. It was their number 2 before other guy went to Chicago. Can't remember anybody's name right now. Anyway, we were just not having a true number 1. Then we found out, okay, we're going to trade for Mari Cooper because, John Gruden didn't like him. So, all right, we'll take him. We'll give up a first for it because it does something for you. It allows you to really test out to see if your QB is the guy. And I think that's what a lot of the season talk was about. Hey, if we're going to pay Dak, we want to make sure he's the guy. Let's actually get him weapons. I think you might see a little of that with Tua, to where, hey, he's mobile. We can maybe run him around a little bit, even though I do think the left, you're never going to be upset with taking a draft Penei Sewell, and then, okay, left tackle is good for the next 10 to 15 years. So, to me, that's always more valuable than a wide receiver, because rarely, even if you have a Hall of Fame wide receiver career, is it over 10 years? Not often that you still have that same production later on. But I think Miami has thrown a lot of draft picks at the board. They were able to come back and get some other later draft round talent as well. So it's hard to say.
Alan Hearns is the name we were looking for, John. Yeah.
Solid guy. Somebody you'd want in your receiving core, but you don't want him to come in and try to replace the recently cut Des Bryant, who was also underperforming at the end of his tenure. So
as an Eagles fan, I want to jump in here quick.
Yeah.
Having the 6th pick and then trading back, I love it right now in retrospect. Because at that 6th pick, you're hoping that Pitts or Chase falls to you. I mean, I'm thinking that's what the Dolphins wanted. I don't think Waddle was, I'd say, ideal for them. It's the guy they took. He goes back with Tua. That's, I guess, good for them. But as an Eagles fan, I mean, trading back to 12, then ultimately up to 10 to get Smith. Like, Smith is the guy I would have taken at 6 anyways. So for me, I'm excited that we got out of that pick based off of how the board fell 1 through 5.
Yeah.
Well,
and it's, to me, I'm sorry, John.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, to me, even looking at the Chase pick, Cincinnati has T. Higgins, who had a good year. The other receiver who I'm blanking on right now, Tyler Boyd. So you already had 2 receivers. Burrow's coming off that ACL tear and all that. And I think to John's point, with a great receiver, the shelf life is not as long as a left tackle would have been. I'm just pretty surprised that Sewell fell to 7, thinking about those 2 teams and what their needs are.
Well, it works out for Detroit because, what's his name, Dan Campbell? He wants a bunch of knee biters, so build in the trenches. So, listen, Detroit's in full rebuild mode, so they need trench help, which is how you build out successful teams, offensive line or defensive line. They get arguably the best non-quarterback talent in the draft at number 7 overall, as far as projecting out such a young left tackle. As far as the value, can't be upset about that value at number 7.
No, that's a great pick for them. One of my previous mocks, I had Sewell going to them. I ultimately thought they were going to trade back, acquire some more picks because they're just such in rebuild mode. But when you're a franchise with a new regime just coming in, I mean, it's hard not to have a better pick than just a foundational tackle that can come in, play right away, and play hopefully for the next 10 to 15 years, like you guys are saying.
Yeah, I thought they could trade back here too, Foose. I think we all kind of agreed the last time we talked that they're probably going to be picking, top 10, top 5 again next year. And so I thought, okay, you could trade back, get a bunch of picks and all of that. I think when you have an opportunity to draft a guy like this, who overall is probably a top 5, some people would even say a top 3 prospect in this draft, it's a great pick. I think they lucked out with that one.
And then our boys in Carolina. Now, I'm torn here because I loved J.C. Horn, but I also love being right. And I had him mocked to go to Carolina. There was a lot of buzz about it. They want to keep him in state. Well, actually, in the Carolinas, he was at South Carolina, going up to Charlotte now to play. J.C. Horn goes number 8 overall, the first cornerback off the board. And the dread as a Cowboys fan starts to kick in. We may not get one of these corners.
I'll speak to that. I remember watching it live, and when Carolina took Horn at 8, I had a sense of relief because I'm like, okay, well, Surtain will fall to us at 10. That was my immediate thought.
Because Fields was on the board still. 10. Justin Fields was still on the board for Denver.
Someone will trade with Denver for Fields, or they'll make a deal to get Rodgers. Something will happen, and we'll be fine. We didn't get Horn, but Surtain will still be there. And then Denver swooped in at 9, and they ruined that.
Which, this is why I brought up earlier about the Aaron Rodgers thing. Apparently, there was quite a bit of talks. Local Denver beat writers even suggested that it was pretty much a done deal. It was this close to already being inked that Rodgers was going to Denver. And John Elway was going to be like, oh, you guys are getting rid of Hall of Fame quarterbacks? Sure, I'll take another one and get a Super Bowl out of it. Let's go. Didn't go through. So, Denver, I don't know, guys. What do you think? You pass on the ability to draft somebody like Justin Fields. Hopefully, it wasn't just for the sole purpose of we might get Aaron Rodgers. Hopefully, that's not how you're drafting the top 10. The hope. Hey, if you have it pen to paper, I understand that, but clearly they are still loving Drew Lock.
Yeah, there was a clip I think they released on social media of their general manager fielding calls for the 9th pick. If I remember right, it was the Saints and the Eagles called, or at least those were 2 of the teams that were shown in that little clip. Which would have been very interesting if the Saints moved up to 9. Reports are they loved Mac Jones. You get Mac Jones there. Suddenly Surtain's available at 10. That could mean the Eagles didn't get Smith then. And if the Eagles traded up to 9, would we have taken Surtain or Smith? I don't know. But the Broncos, it seemed like, had a lot of opportunities. Ultimately, though, I think it comes back to their division. And, I mean, that division goes through Kansas City. And if you want to be able to compete against the Chiefs, you need to be able to play some defense against those receivers. And Surtain, well, I don't think he's a great pick for them. I think he fills that role. You're on mute, John.
And that's the same reason Dallas was wanting Surtain. You come in, put him on one side of the field. You don't need to worry about him. He's never had like off the field issues. He probably doesn't have the upside that J.C. Horn had, but he's just a solid. You're going to get immediately would have been the best quarterback on most teams coming in first round, first year easily. But I mean, you guys traded up with us to end up getting Devontae Smith, so clearly you guys wanted to get in front of New York to get the receiver. So it was probably that. To me, I asked myself the same way I've asked, because Dallas was on the phone with their people trying to trade up to get Fields beforehand. So we've already heard a little bit of them admitting that. So at one point in time, is the player you're getting worth more than what you would get back? Is Patrick Surtain worth more to Denver than the haul that they might have gotten? So, man, we'll see.
Yeah, it's interesting. But then at 10, I mean, we had that words that I never thought I would hear on draft night. At least the first round.
I was so confused with what was going on.
It was. I mean, it's funny
it,
too because we just talked about how you never, ever, ever trade a first pick to a division rival.
or just a pick in general.
Yeah, or just
You
a
were
pick in
upset
general.
about it last year, giving us a center.
Yeah, it's just like, why in the world would you do that? And honestly, if I was in your shoes, I'd be more upset with this pick. Though ultimately, Smith is going to be going to the NFC East regardless
Right.
of whether you make the trade or not, and you might as well get a little bit of something out of it. The third round pick.
And Stephen Jones even admitted that because they asked them, "What side of the ball are you trading up for?"
Yeah.
And they knew ahead of time, "Hey, he's either going to New York or Philly, and we can still go back and still get our. We're going to play against him one way or the other.
Yeah.
Might as well get another third round pick out of it, and still draft the same guy we were going to draft."
Yeah, it seems like you guys didn't want to drop all the way down to 20 with Chicago for that trade because it seems like you guys wanted Parsons.
Yeah.
And you probably could have had that draft haul, but yeah, I mean, as an Eagles fan, I'm ecstatic. You get Devontae Smith. I mean, he could be a franchise-changing player for the Eagles. I mean, this guy, Heisman Trophy winner, just his college football playoff was amazing. What a run that was, and I'm just so excited to get him in Eagles green. It's just going to be fun to watch footballs on Sunday. Hopefully, him and Rager, you got Goddard, whatever they do with the slot or wherever Smith plays, I think it's going to be a lot of fun because you can do a lot of different things with him. One thing as I was just talking, I realized I meant to bring this up earlier, but these top three receivers are all back paired with college quarterbacks they've played with. You got Chase going, connecting with Burrow. You got Waddle with Tua. Now you have Smith back with Hurts. It's going to be interesting to see if those connections, or if these players take better to the receiver position than some other receivers in the past because they have that familiarity with their quarterback already. Because looking back over the last decade or so in the NFL, wide receiver is one of those positions that's really hard to get accustomed to, unless your name's Justin Jefferson. But like as an Eagles fan, it's just like receiver after receiver after receiver, just not panning out. And you get this. I mean, Corey Davis. It took him years to finally play up to a little bit of his potential. So it's going to be, I think, fun to watch in that regard as well.
Yeah, for sure. It also helps when all those quarterbacks played at Alabama, and so for the most part, it was either the LSU. You know, you have national championship teams, so you have talent that's already going there, so they're more likely to get connected together. But let's keep this thing rolling. We are dragging along a little bit. We want to get through all these 32 picks, and then we're going to jump right in. New York, after Philly with the steal, bailed out. Chicago comes up at number 11 and takes Justin Fields as their franchise quarterback of the future.
See, John, I also like being right because, I didn't have this exact trade panned out, but you can go back and re-listen last week. I was like, there is no way that Nagy and Pace are staking their football lives on Andy Dalton. This has to be a trade up somewhere for Justin Fields. I said 8. They ultimately did 11, but to me, this was just like too easy of a fit. If Justin Fields started to slide, and it panned out for them. Getting him at 11, I think, is a great pick. It may have saved their time, at least another season in Chicago. And now it's just everything's on Justin Fields.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it for both teams. I love that Nagy and Pace basically just said, we're not going out without a fight. We're going to get a quarterback. We think he's the future. And if you're the Giants, okay, you don't get your guy in Smith at 10, but they got a haul. I mean, they got an additional first and second round pick in next year's draft. They can feel good about that.
Especially for a team that's rebuilding like they are. Now, I don't know if they fully think that they're rebuilding, but they're rebuilding. So they're going to be pleased with that. We talked about it before the draft. Next year's draft, those picks are even extra valuable because it's going to be probably may even have some extra rounds next year. It's going to be very unique. One quick question I would ask you guys. If Justin Fields sits out, is he still number 2 overall this year? Because we heard for years building up, it was 1A, 1B. Lawrence, well, then maybe 1A, 1 and then 2A, and that being Justin Fields until this past year.
What was the question again? If he sat out?
If Justin Fields sat out this past year, if he didn't play.
Oh, if he didn't play at all.
Would he have been the second quarterback off the board?
That's very interesting because
that's a great question.
He was one of the leading forces that brought the Big Ten to actually start playing football again in the fall. Because I mean, you have a guy like Trey Lance that just sat out a year and he's up at 3. It's definitely a possibility.
Yeah, those are just questions I wonder about this year specifically, because you had other people that sat out that maybe went higher than him. But sorry, Chris, you want to talk about that?
To me, Zach Wilson was the biggest wild card of this year, of kind of coming in as the unknown and then flying up the draft board. So I don't know, John. Maybe if Fields sits out, Wilson is then the third quarterback and not the second. It's just hard to know.
Yeah. Well, we're going to keep on rolling and get into Dallas at 12, who picks up probably one of the freakiest athletes in this draft, Micah Parsons, number 12. Probably hands down the best linebacker in the draft moving forward, the best run defender, pass rushing linebacker, blitzing linebacker, and little sneak preview, I also think we got the best coverage linebacker in the draft with Jabril Cox in the 4th round. So I think we got the best of both sides. That's going to be a steal for later on. But I, at the time, really liked Rashawn Slater. Plug him in at left guard. Let's go. We got this thing rolling again, which he went right off the board. Next pick to the Chargers, who, I mean, getting to sit at 13, not trade up and still get Slater, amazing pick. And then you got Elijah Vera-Tucker going off the board right after that. So, Foose, you seem to dominate those couple of selections. Tell us how you knew.
I mean, when you know, you know. Though if you see right before it had J.C. Horn and then Parsons slipping down to the Patriots, but the Chargers, I think they were making it very obvious they wanted a tackle. I think they wanted Sewell, but they couldn't trade a mortgage their future to do so. Slater, I think, is a very good player. I think the only knock against him is his stubby arms, which that can be overcome in the NFL. You have guys that can play great. Vera-Tucker at 14, I really thought that the Vikings were just going to stay put and take him. Did not expect the Jets to try to come up and get him, but then Minnesota then at 23 picked Darrisaw, which was great value for them. Apparently they were also a team that was looking to move up to get Fields. I heard that as well. But then they were able to go in the 3rd round and take Kellen Mond, which a little spicy there in Minnesota. They've had some QB competitions not too long ago, and one might be brewing again, though I don't think Mond is that much competition for Cousins. But yeah, just looking at the draft board, the talent available, those guys to me seemed like the next logical spot to go for them. Because after, let's say, 15 with the Patriots in this draft, it's like, who knows what's going to happen with the rest of the 1st round. And we saw that. There were some reaches not too far long after that, and some real head scratchers.
Yeah, I think looking at it, I am excited for Parsons, like John. I had no clue what Dallas was going to do here after both corners went off the board. I assumed One might go ahead, but if one went ahead, we would have the other one to pick up. I like the Parsons pick. I just think his athletic gifts kind of put him over the top. I am very interested with the Cox pick in round 4. Then also hearing that Keanu Neal is going to play linebacker, not safety. They already haven't picked up their option on Van Der Esch. There are rumors that Jalen Smith could be traded at some point. So you just kind of wonder what they're doing on the defensive side and all that.
Who's going to take that contract? Who?
That is an excellent question, John. And it's why it's just a rumor for now, I guess.
I hear also talks, again, nothing in. Dallas is going to say they love him until they cut him. I mean, that's just how front offices are going to work. So he could be June 1st, because they're already cutting people they just signed after the draft. Antoine Woods was their nose tackle. They're like, nope, we got tackles now. You're good. You make $2 million, too much for nose tackle. We're going to pay somebody $600K instead. So you're going to have a lot of that happening. So nobody's roster is anywhere near done, even though the 90-man rosters were, I think, made official already. But yeah, we'll see how that all shakes out. Again, switching to mostly nickel 3-4 in base is what Dan Quinn said in his post-draft interview. But how do you get that many linebackers on the field? I just don't know how that works out. Somebody's going to go back and forth. Keanu Neal's probably going to go back and play safety because they have nobody at safety because Vegas decided to jump them in the second round. But we're not going to talk about that right now. We're going to keep on moving right along and go through the remaining picks. I will say,
though, as an Eagles fan, I'm not too disappointed that you took a guy with talent but also has a somewhat shady background. It's going to be interesting how that plays out.
Yeah, we did it again in the second round.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the Jason Garrett years of the right kind of guy are a distant memory. And they're all going to be in New York. But I think they so aggressively countered that. We're not going to get into Dallas' draft. We're going to save that for the NFC breakdown. Yeah. We'll come back to that later.
Yeah, I was going to say I loved the Slater pick. The Chargers did not have to move, and they were able to get a tackle. I like the Vera Tucker pick. When we talk about teams drafts later, I love when teams go all in on a young quarterback and just say, okay, you're our guy. We're going to do everything possible to make this the best situation. They did not do that for Darnold, and so I love that they're doing it for Wilson. Mac Jones at 15, New England did not need to move up to get their guy. And I think to Foos's earlier point, he can probably play right away. They're saying all the right things about Cam Newton. I think no one actually believes it, though. I think Mac Jones, with Belichick's tutelage, I never think he'll be an elite quarterback, but I do think he could be a good, solid NFL starting quarterback.
And here's the thing, too. With the Patriots, if you want to light a fire under Cam Newton, this is a very good way to do so. If they think, okay, we have a chance possibly this year. I mean, they've went out and made a lot of moves. And it's like, okay, you need to give just a little more, kick in the pants to Cam Newton to say, all right, let's see what you got. And he's a competitor for all the knocks on Newton for not having the best accuracy and everything else. That guy competes. So that could be a very fun QB competition to see. Though it being the Patriots, I don't know how it's just going to play out. It'll be very interesting.
I think with Newton, for me, it's not a lack of desire. I'm just afraid his body is not going to hold up because it just hasn't. He's had injuries, I feel like, almost every single year the past few years. And I think if he's healthy, he can definitely still be productive. I just don't know if his body is going to hold up for an entire season at this point.
Yeah, and that's fair. I think that's where he's at this stage in his career. However, year 2 into the system, half their team felt like opted out last year. Like they lost half their defense, literally. So it'll be interesting to see how New England bounces back. But you know what? They'll be fine.
Yeah, this was a much better draft for them than last year, where they took 2 tight ends who now it seems like may not even be on the depth chart.
Listen, speaking from a former Dynasty fan, like, you'll be fine. Go a couple of decades with bad teams. Then come back with it. You had one off year, and you're going to be back in the playoffs probably next year. So,
Yeah.
chill out, New England.
Yeah. So this is the point of the draft, though, between 15 and 16, where things really just kind of fell off talent-wise.
Well, we talked about it beforehand. Most teams will probably have 15 to 18-ish first-round grades on players in any given draft. There's never 32 first-round talents during a draft. It's rare that it's even gets into the 20s. So then, like you said, you're alluding to, Foos, teams just start picking what they want, just like Oakland does in a couple of picks, just like we knew they would. Xavier Collins goes to Arizona.
And I think that's the right spot for Collins. Talked about that last time, too, where I think teams was good for him. If he was at a bigger school, I think this is where he would have fit in anyways in mocks. And but the Cardinals, though, it kind of baffles me because last year they took Justin Simmons, and it seems like they're trying to figure him out.
Right.
But now they have Collins, so that pick kind of, I don't know. I'm not quite sure what they have in store for him, but I think it's a decent pick. And then, yeah, as you were alluding to, Oakland's just going to, or not Oakland, the Raiders are just going to Raider. They're going to do whatever they want.
Yeah. I think looking at a few of these picks, I liked Xavier Collins a lot too. I read somewhere Simmons was kind of the hybrid guy they drafted last year. And a few people speculated that might have been the reason that JOK fell. Part of the reason why JOK fell, we know he had health stuff, is that they still can't figure out Simmons' position. So you don't want to have that same problem. I love John Gruden. I love John Gruden. Always good for a headline. And he was good for a headline this draft. I don't know how many teams had Leatherwood as a first-round prospect, but John Gruden did. I think skipping down just a little bit.
Real quick here.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
Mayock, admitted, oh yeah, we had people calling. We had people offering to trade up to our spot. And we're like, nope, Alex Leatherwood, he's our guy. We're not trading away. We can't trade away from that talent in the first round.
Alex Leatherwood could be worth it, but
yeah. I mean, throw back to the Dallas likes to throw this in their fans' face. Anytime a reporter asks the Jones family too much about why they drafted somebody somewhere, they're just like, "Oh, Travis Frederick, we took him the first round, and everybody thought he was a third round, fourth round talent. And look at him, he's retired. Is what he is. Love him anyway. Moving on from there.
Yeah, but yeah, the Raiders are just going to do whatever they want. Yeah. I will add someone. I'm not going to say who, but one of us three called the Jalen Phillips pick, so kudos to them. But yeah, Miami, they needed some edge talent, and they got it. The Washington, I guess they're just going to keep stacking up that defense. That's going to be one fierce defense. And they didn't draft a quarterback, so it's all in Fitzpatrick's hands right now. But Jamin Davis, I don't know. 19 seems a little high for me for him. Doesn't seem like a huge position to need, but
yeah. I mean, I've heard a lot of teams were really high on him later, and he was shooting up the board. So
I really thought they would be one of the teams that took one of the three quarterbacks that went at the end of round 2, beginning of round 3, drafted a developmental guy, put him behind Fitzpatrick, but man, they are all in on Fitzmagic. Hey, we'll take it.
And then you've got somebody who was probably slated as a second round talent that had been jumping up boards, who we all had in the bottom of the first half of the draft, but New York gets their wide receiver stolen. They come back and get Kadarius Toney.
Yeah, Toney, watching his highlights reminds me of Alvin Kamara, but he's not a running back. So there's a lot of playmaking ability, but the thing is, how do you feed him the ball? And they can figure ways out for that, but he's also really small.
Will they, though? Will they really figure out ways to utilize him in multiple aspects of the game? Just like Jason Garrett used Ezekiel Elliott out of the backfield to catch passes, like they told us that. Never mind.
You don't know what they're going to do. I don't like the pick for them. I'm just saying this is the kind of guy that he is. Whether the Giants are going to use him right or not, I personally hope they don't. But he's a guy who has a high ceiling. But at 20, it's like,
do you call him? Would you consider like a gadget player, like a specific packages you need to make for him?
Yeah, I don't know why you don't draft Elijah Moore here. He's more like, to me, they're more of the same player in the sense that they do the same thing. But Moore, I think, is more of that traditional kind of slot guy. And Tony, you're just going to kind of have to figure out a role for him in your offense. And maybe I'm wrong, and this guy's a superstar next Tyreek Hill type player. But I think he's a guy you can wait on. Either trade back or trade up into the second round. But to me, this pick just shows they're all in on Danny Dimes this year. And this is his year to prove it or lose it. And so they're just putting talent around him. And as a Eagles fan, I don't think he's going to get over that hump. But it could be fun to watch up in New York.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the comps a lot of people were making, and I think it's kind of a lazy comp, I'll say that, was Percy Harvin, a guy kind of a hybrid, not going to be your top receiver, but you can use in a variety of ways and all that. But, I mean, you look at the draft board, Elijah Moore and Bateman were both still on the board here. And so you passed up on guys that I think all three of us probably agree were better receivers. I don't know. I think if you were that in love with Tony, you could have moved back. I also think Indianapolis at 21, I really thought they might take Bateman if he were still there. So I was surprised to see really both of these teams pass on Bateman.
Yeah, I thought the Colts were going to be drafting an offensive lineman. I mean, I had them taking Darisaw. But they went defense pretty hard in this draft.
Yeah, and they took the player, I mean, to cut you off there, Foos, they took the player that nobody knew where to mock, which was Kwity Paye.
His range was as high as number 12 and as low as, the end of the first round. So, I mean, and some people thought, oh, he's the best edge rusher in the draft, but then everyone agreed, oh, it's a bad draft for edge rushers. So I didn't understand that pick.
Yeah, I had them taking an edge rusher after they traded back and get Jason Owa, but yeah, just keep throwing talent on that team. They're still a well-coached team. They're still going to be competitive. So, and that's probably one of those picks that you may not, especially with those first-round edge rushers, it may be a couple of years before you actually see the fruits of that down the road.
Yeah. Well, moving along, Tennessee taking one of the biggest question marks in this draft, and Caleb Fairley. What do you guys think of that?
So, well, we were pretty spot on with the rumors, because the rumor before, and I put it in my mock, was that New Orleans was going to trade up to get in front of Tennessee because they heard Tennessee was going for Caleb Farley. So, the fact that they go there, it's hard to say. What do they need? I wanted them to boost their offensive line even more so, just to add depth to it, but, if healthy, that's the question mark. If healthy, he's going to be a steal. Because if we don't get that news that he has a second back surgery, he's the first quarterback off the board this year, easily. So, and we talked about it when you get down to these 20s. At a certain point, the talent's worth the risk. Sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, a lot of what I had read was that he was a top 5 talent before injuries, that a lot of people had him as a top 5 talent. So I don't think this is a bad spot. I see that Foose and I both had Elijah Moore going here, which I think would have been a great pick. But it's high risk, high reward for sure. But I think at 22, the risk is not. I think it is worth the risk. I'll say that.
Yeah, I'm just glad my team didn't make that risk. We did so with Sidney Jones a few years ago, different injuries. But yeah, I have a bit of flashback to that with this Farley pick. But hey, if it works out for them, they have probably the best defensive back in the draft. So kudos to them if that works out.
Yeah. And right after that, you were right that the Vikings, Foose, were going to take a tackle. They just took him down to 23 instead. Christian Darrisaw goes off the board. And then we're followed up right again with Chris getting his pick correct at number 24 with Najee Harris. And
again, to clarify, I don't know that any of these running backs should have gone in the first round. That's just what I kept hearing, that, oh, they love Najee Harris. They love Najee Harris. To the point where NFL Network, on their coverage of the draft, compared him to Franco Harris. And I think my brother and I kind of looked at each other like, okay, who's doing these comps? Like, I feel like Najee Harris may be a very good back. That's only setting him up for failure, it feels like. But they feel like they're probably player away. I get it. So I understand the pick.
Yeah, they're in win now mode with Ben Roethlisberger returning for this year, probably retiring after this year. Running back's one of those positions where as a rookie, you can step in and still just pick up where you left off in college. Harris has that skill set they love. He's a bruiser, but he can also catch out of the backfield. I think it's a good fit. I wouldn't have made it myself. I had them taking a tackle. So that would have been my own choice if I was them. But yeah, you have Harris, and then ETN's even a bigger head scratcher for me.
Does Urban Meyer just think he's still coaching college and he needs 3 running backs?
I mean, he even said that, or was it him or someone else in the
No, he said like, "Hey, we're going to have a stable. All 3 of them are going to play."
Well, ETN is like their third down guy, and it's just like you're taking the 25th pick overall as a third down running back. Like, what do you think you're doing?
Because James Robinson had a great year last year. You also have Carlos Hyde. Then one of my favorite things, Urban Meyer admitted, oh, yeah, no, we wanted Tony, and he was off the board, so we went with ETN. Like, who says that, So I didn't understand this pick either, guys.
I felt bad for you, Chris, when this pick came in, because a little bit of context. Chris won the fantasy football league that I'm a commissioner of, and part of the reason was James Robinson
carried my team.
Yeah, amazing pick for him. And then all of a sudden, Travis Etienne's name flashes, and I'm just like, well, that spices things up.
Unbelievable.
And here it comes to the whole value. I'm literally reading an article they had about this, to where the pick, somebody writing on ESPN said the pick did seem a bit odd at first, since James Robinson ran for 1,070 yards and 7 touchdowns as an undrafted rookie. Undrafted. You spent minimal money. Listen, doesn't,
There's so many different ways they could have went with this pick. But hey, maybe ETN is like the next Fred Taylor for them, and that'd be great. But I think everyone's questioning the value of this, and Urban Meyer's just going to do what he wants. Comes in from college. There was some struggle he had earlier with like tampering. I think it was right before free agency. It's like, yeah, man, you're not back at college. You can't just do what you want.
He said it was tampering. He, I think, is just not used to all the best players going to him automatically. It's like it doesn't work that way. Like, they have choices. Some teams can pay more. Yeah, I don't think he understood how NFL free agency worked.
Yeah. And then moving right along to Cleveland at 26, who, sneak peek here, is one of my favorite drafts, was Cleveland's draft. The type of boy, Greg Newsome, quarterback. And then, sneak peek, we're not going to go over second round today, but they got who Foose mocked in the first round, in the second round, at JOK that got it turned around. So stacked up on a defense was already solid.
Cleveland is
You've got
looking like a different football team than the Cleveland Browns right now.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got two guys who could potentially start on a defense that had a pretty good year last year. Okay, so you added two pieces to that. You got OBJ coming back from an injury. You still have your two running backs coming out of the backfield. I think they're going to be a really good team this year. And so, John, I love their draft too.
Currently, they have third best odds to win the Super Bowl post draft. So we'll see if they can't Baker Mayfield it up a little bit. But
Yeah, it's all in
it'll be fun to
Mayfield's hands
watch
now.
either way.
I feel so bad for Bateman at 27. He was one of my favorite players this draft. He was probably my third ranked receiver behind Chase and Smith. And he goes to a team that is not going to use him right with the Ravens. I just don't think that's a good place for a receiver to go. Because, they're just such a run-heavy team. And so I feel really bad for him going to the Ravens. At the same time, that's a great value for them, I think.
Yeah, I really didn't think he would fall this far. I thought Indianapolis at 21. I think even Jacksonville at 25, that would have been an incredible pick for them. The one thing I'll say, I agree, Foose, their offensive scheme doesn't really seem to fit who he is. At the same time, I don't feel like Lamar has had a receiver like him. So maybe you're able to diversify the offense a little bit now that you have a guy like him as one of your receivers.
And then Sean Payton does more Sean Payton things. And
Is he on the Raiders now? It's hard for me to tell the difference here.
they're the same type of coach where they're just they like who they like. They're also a team that's historically drafted and paid for trading up for players that wasn't the consensus overall. Maybe Sean Payton just likes his last name a lot and went for Peyton Turner there. They already have Davenport and Cameron Jordan. Cameron, it's one of the Camerons. What's the guy's name?
And Turner too. It's like he was projected to be more of a day 2 kind of pick than a day 1, where it's like you could probably take him. I'm not sure with their next pick, but potentially trade up. And the Saints are one of those teams that they're pretty savvy when it comes to trading around. So I think they could have done that. But
I just look at it too. Trayvon Merrick was still on the board. Elijah Moore still on the board. You could have traded back. You could have gotten him in a later round. There's a variety of ways you could have gone.
And two, if you're going to take a defensive end here, why don't you just roll the dice on a guy like Gregory Rousseau rather than Peyton Turner? I don't know. To me, it's just the Saints are a team that is – they're obviously not the same Saints as last year. And I think this pick is going to continue to put them down in that negative direction, unfortunately, for them.
Well, we also said this before the draft, that there's not really high-end premium rush talent, but you have this late first round to second round just bullpen different edge rushers, and then figure who's going to fit in your scheme best. So if you think it's your guy, if you think he's going to fit in your scheme the best, you already have a plan of how to use him. Talking about Arizona, not knowing how to use Simmons, and that's probably what delayed his development and production on the field. If you have a plan of action for your player, that's going to be the main difference. And then we already talked about it earlier, Green Bay doesn't care about Aaron Rodgers' feelings.
Yeah, I actually had Stokes going. I think it was 16 that the Raiders picked, and 17 they picked at 17. He was just a guy who had an incredible pro day. And you always get guys like this where, Stokes had some good tape. I think he had a lot of turnovers. But other than that, you weren't really sure what you were getting. And all of a sudden he came in and blew out on the 40 time, and probably a few other things. And guess Green Bay was just enamored with him. I don't know. To me, you're in the NFC North. I mean, you have the Minnesota Vikings with Thielen and Jefferson, but there's not a huge need to get defensive backs to win that division. You more just like we've been talking about, you want to get talent around Aaron Rodgers to just be able to ball out for the rest of his career. And they're just don't seem to be on that same kind of page. They're just doing their own thing. And so this pick kind of baffles me as well.
Didn't
all of us had receiver in our mocks. All of us. Foose, you and I had Tony. John, you had Moore, who was still on the board. I'm with you guys. I don't get this.
What didn't that Green Bay secondary pick off Tom Brady 3 times in a row? I mean,
They
what
did.
a gift. Yes,
I
Tom
think you
Brady
need to go
wins
and
another
draft
Super Bowl, but he had some gifts on his way up.
I mean, I think you need to draft a defensive back round 1. That's what it sounds like to me. That's their biggest area of need after picking off Tom Brady 3 times.
I said this earlier. I was still hoping they would draft a quarterback just to see all things become utter chaos. Why not just lean all the way into it? I think that would
Or
be
trades that happen right there. Because those draft picks are never as valuable as they are that day. It's like driving a car off the line. The minute you make that draft pick, they're not worth the same round at minimum that they were just the day before. So, Buffalo, I think we said this beforehand. Just take a player, probably just throw somebody else in that defense. That's what they did. They went ahead and took Gregory Rousseau, add more talent on that edge.
This is my first time seeing this, but 4 of the last 5 picks are edge rushers, which just goes to show, like, these top teams, they feel like they can never get enough edge rushers.
Yeah.
Just how valuable that is to have that rotation. I'm glad I was wrong and that the Eagles didn't trade back up. For me, this was a draft where Howie Roseman had to get a top receiver talent to stay relevant or alive in the city of Philadelphia. And he did so already with Smith, so I'm glad we didn't trade up. Ertz is still on the team. We'll see what happens with that. But yeah, the Bills getting Gregory Rousseau. I mean, we talked about it last time that it's hard for them to go wrong with this pick. Just take top talent that's available and just see what happens. And I think that's a good pick for them.
You know, I had Rousseau at 32. I kind of feel like Buffalo is in a similar position as Tampa, where you had an incredible year. You can take a risk at a guy at pick 30. And if Rousseau is the guy who got 19 sacks in a season a few years ago, like, man, that was worth the risk. I think they were in a position to take a risk, and we'll see how it works out. But I think it's a great pick.
Now, once we get towards the end, Baltimore does the same thing. Take some more edge rushers. And then, rounding out Joe Tryon. Tryon?
I think it's Tryon.
Yeah.
But I have no idea. I think it's interesting the Ravens didn't take a tackle to replace Orlando Brown. I mean, they signed Villanueva. But, yeah, they didn't feel the need to draft a tackle round 1. They're a team, I think, that is loading up really well. And it really just all depends on how Lamar Jackson bounces back after kind of leveling off to his career right now.
How do you feel about the end of the draft, Chris? In that first round.
You know what I thought was interesting? So Foose mentioned all the edge rushers going, and there were a few guys that I really was surprised to see fall out of the first round. We talked a little bit about JOK, the hybrid thing, the heart issue, all of those kinds of things. I really did not think Trayvon Merrick would fall out of the first. I thought some team would grab him before the first round was over. And then Elijah Moore was a guy we all had mocked. to go sometime in the first round, and so I was surprised to see some of these names. I understand, maybe the need for edge rushing and all of that. I was surprised to see so many go in the first round.
Yeah, I mean, it comes back to that cluster of talent, and it's one of those positions that it's so hard to figure out if they're gonna hit or not. So, again, when you're at the end of the first round, your team's doing well enough, you can afford the time to let players develop. That's why sometimes it's those mid to late round, first round quarterbacks that get drafted. They go to better situations, better managed teams, better run teams, and they have success. I mean, we've talked about that with what happened to Sam Darnold with the Jets. Now, it does seem like the Jets are turning the corner here. They're actually going to protect him. Chris, you talked about that earlier. But it'll be definitely interesting to see how all these draft picks have an impact. Who's going to be your offensive rookie of the year? Probably going to be QB, going to have to say. Defensive rookie of the year. Maybe Dallas has an inside side on that. We'll see. But
So
go ahead.
I'm just to round up this segment here. I got a question for you guys. Besides your team's pick, who was your favorite pick of the first round?
Let's go back to it. Let's get them all on one page so we can all see them all laid out.
Because there's a few really good value picks that happened in this draft. For me, I think it's the Bears with Justin Fields. I think that's just a match that is just perfect for both teams, or both sides. For Fields, stepping into a place in Chicago with an amazing defense. They brought back Allen Robinson. They got Cole Kmet. They still have, can't think of the shifty running back. They have Darnell Mooney. And they're just starving for quarterback talent.
Yeah, I loved that pick too, Foose. I loved, Nagy and Pace being aggressive. It feels like for the past couple of years, you would watch the Bears and just kind of say, if only, they had an elite quarterback, if only they passed on Trubisky and took in Mahomes or Watson. And so it feels like they have their long-term guy finally. And so I liked that pick that they went and got their guy. I liked the Slater pick that, again, I think investing in that young QB and saying, we're going to put everything around you to succeed. John mentioned this earlier. I thought Cleveland had a really good draft to get two guys who can start right away. I thought Newsome would go higher than 26, and so I thought that was a really good pick too.
Yeah, it's hard not to agree with the Justin Fields pick because you had a team that was just in dire need of just competent quarterback play, just standard, just average, and they're a team that, if you look historically, they've never really had that solid franchise star QB. They've had some quarterbacks that were franchise in the sense that they stuck around for a while. But never really got above that level. So for Bears fans, the Bears, hopefully Justin Fields works out for you up there in the Illinois. So anytime you can get your talent, I'm excited for Trevor Lawrence. I don't know how it can't be that. You get one of the number one quarterback prospects for the better part of decades. Probably one of the best we've seen. Top 5, top 10 quarterback prospects of all time. Could make that argument. That doesn't mean he's going to pan out. And I know that it's a ridiculously easy pick to make when you're in that number one spot overall. But I think that's the pick of the draft. It's a cheat answer. I'm going to go with it either way. Because you could have been New York and had the chance for it and then fumbled it away by winning a game you didn't need to win last year. But that's just how the Jets run. Well, we'll go ahead and call that for this segment, for this first initial review of Friends and Foes of the 2021 NFL mock draft. Stick around next week. We're going to go a little bit deeper dive into a division for our teams. get into a little bit deeper look of who we loved, who were some sleepers who we think were steals of the draft, and maybe even give some predictions of who had the biggest improvement. Well, for Michael Foose, Chris Cortez, this has been John Damon. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Have a good one.